Okay, I believe you are live.
Okay. Welcome everyone to our Finance Committee meeting on February 20, November 26th. And right now I don't see any attendees from the public. So we will, let me get this over here so I can follow the agenda. Okay. So the first item on the agenda, if I can get this to shrink, is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do I have, I'm calling the meeting to order at 4:35. And so do I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Dan seconded.
Okay, well, there we go. So the meeting is approved and seconded. Let's see, here's my agenda again. And the next item then is to check to see members of the public who are present. When I looked before, I did not see any members of the public present, but let me check again.
None.
This is none? Okay.
No.
All right. Oh, yeah, here's the participants thing. So there are no attendees from the public at this point, and I guess I'll just watch that to see if any more show up. And so our first item on the agenda is a continued discussion of the budget questionnaire responses.
Do we want to approve the minutes and state our names?
Oh, that's right. Okay, so we need to approve the minutes from last week, from the 13th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So
I'll
moved.
make that.
Oh,
Okay, seconded. Okay. And I'm not seeing, okay, and who seconded? Because I wasn't looking.
Cindy.
Cindy, okay. So Cindy seconded, and so maybe we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Bobby Rood, and I am a board member from Waitsfield, and I'll be facilitating the meeting tonight in the absence of our committee chair.
I'm Steve Rosenberg. I'm a Moortown rep on the board.
Okay.
Dan Rossioli, Waterbury rep.
I'm Ashley Woods. I'm the Warren rep and the current board chair.
Cindy Senning, and I'm the rep from Duxbury and the vice chair of the board.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Essler, the Director of Finance and Operations for the school district.
Okay. Great. Now, we will, okay, so we've introduced ourselves and the members of the public. Thank you, Steve. And no public comment at this point. So discussion topics, basically continued discussion of the budget questionnaire, and then review the line item projections with Lisa. So,
How are we doing on that? Are you talking about the survey?
yeah,
Yeah.
how many more surveys have we gotten in?
Yeah.
Well, I closed it on last Wednesday. I think we got a total of, was it about 212 responses? And I wrote a summary, and then Bobby improved the summary, and then Dan improved the summary. So thanks to everybody. I mean, I think that final summary kind of speaks for itself. I think that I don't know how much we want to discuss this now. We've kind of gone over the main hits.
Yeah.
And did after what we discussed, did we see the same messaging from the subsequent
Yes.
ones?
Yeah,
Have you looked through it? Yeah.
Yeah, more of the same.
Yeah, okay. So basically, a lot of people are in favor of consolidation and particularly consolidation at the middle school level. Sounds like they're in favor of that. And the other thing we saw was in terms of class sizes, not to do anything unless it really makes cost sense, not to, the people are wanting to see ways that we can save money. So looking for that and bring down our cost per pupil. And also, but do it in a way that is equitable. So that we're not, if we did a pay to, that was the one thing that Steve said, that we didn't call it pay to play, but that's how people wrote it up. And there seemed to be a feeling that, well, it wouldn't be equitable if, some kids couldn't play because they couldn't pay. And we said that was not the point. So I don't know if there was more of that sentiment that came in, but that's kind of where we're.
About the same. I think Lisa has her hand up.
Okay, all right, Lisa, yeah, sorry. Lisa, can you unmute? Oh, she's on the phone.
I'm sorry, I have to take, this is a bit of an emergency with our banking, so I just wanted to let you know I have to take this phone call, so.
Okay,
give me
Okay.
a
Okay.
second.
okay, oh
Okay.
dear. Okay, so,
I
but,
mean, the lesson for me is, I think I used the phrase pay to play in some school board meeting. And the lesson to me is, be careful what you say in these public meetings.
yeah,
Yep, it's true. It's easy to misinterpret something that's said on the fly and then it's on, runs wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to be careful with that. And I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, my lesson was, well, Lisa wrote it up in the paper, Lisa Loomis, and said I was from Warren. And she credited me with doing the whole thing and didn't credit other people. And that, I'm sorry that happened, but it did.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. I mean,
So can I
one
make a
thing,
suggestion on this?
Yeah.
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, so I was thinking that either as an agenda item at the next meeting or offline, we should address each of the suggestions that the public had, possibly as like a FAQ. And so that they know that we've heard it and that we're looking at it. And even if it's just to say that we can't address this at this time, or we're already looking at this, so people know that they've been heard about it.
Yeah.
How do
I
you
would-
want to do it? Say that again.
Well, I was thinking either as a frequently asked questions document that we could post, or we could do a follow-up to the summary, but I felt like the fact would probably be the easiest way.
I think it would. I want that so much. I know it's a hard thing to put together. This is a great place to start with it. I love that idea.
Yeah, and I think,
that-
yeah,
you're kind of halfway there too, Bobby, with all the write-up that, that sort of breaking down of it you did, that we could go through it and like address common issues in that FAQ, or that would be great.
I think it's
So-
an excellent, I've been thinking of the same thing, and it's something you can use also at when we have those meetings. You can, have the frequently asked questions, and the first meeting is coming up very soon.
So what would that look like? We take kind of this summary and we put in kind of board responses to these suggestions, or board comments on the, like, people being so strongly in favor of consolidation. And then
What we could say to that would be, like, an answer to that would be this, the question of consolidation is one we are definitely working on, looking to answer. The way we are doing that is we've started with the feasibility study, so we can break down, kind of describe where we're at. Is that what you're seeing, Dan? Like, describe where we're at with each question, or say, we're not doing this right now, or, that's
Yeah,
next
exactly. I don't
level.
think we have to have ultimate answers for each one. Just
Yeah, right.
kind of address where we're at in the process.
Yep.
A line or two for each idea is probably all it really needs.
Right,
and
so
then
I think-
put this document where on the
Website,
all the usual places.
all the usual places, if we can, that would be a great that's another touch, people can just find it. It's kind of like the survey revisited, as a FAQ. We could kind of bill it as that. We've heard you, and here are our responses to the most frequently mentioned things, or to tell
We
you where
could-
we're at.
Ask
Something like-
Shannon to just post on Front Porch Forum that, this FAQ is available now.
Yep, and we could send the link to our favorite Lisas.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So who,
Well, not
I-
our favorites, actually.
no, so who do we, who would like to work on this? Because I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I can do some work on it. I should, a couple of us work on it because I think that's fine. We decide in this meeting, we want to do it, and then a couple of people will work on it. And I mean, that's not open meeting. We don't have to develop the survey during an open meeting,
I
do
mean,
we?
Yeah, we have
Bobby,
the data.
Bo-
You're kind of like working on the data.
Yeah. we
if
just-
if you want to do first pass, Bobby, I'll take a look then.
Okay.
I'm happy to help with that if I can. I'm back in a few days.
Okay, right. Where are you? Oh gosh, you're far away.
Yeah, I'm in Ireland right now, and I'm going to England tomorrow to see Poppy.
That's great. Well, it looks like you're in
Yeah.
a nice place wherever you're
I'm in
staying.
a weird hotel with a lot of heavy wood carving. No, it's actually beautiful. It's right on the ocean. It's amazing.
Wow.
We saw my cousin today. He lives here.
Okay. But Dan, since you proposed it, do you want to work on it with me? I mean,
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
you'd be glad to. Okay.
Yay!
How about, yeah, so we'll, who wants, do you want to start it, Dan, and then pass it around, or how do you want to do this sharing? I don't have.
Well, does your list,
what-
Bobby, does your breakout have like those basic messages? I mean, do you have what you made, is that something you could give to Dan for him to sort of work on, or somebody? I don't know what's
Yeah.
best.
I don't know what, yeah, maybe, well, or Dan and I could just, yeah, I mean, I can certainly forward you what I have. It's already, the
Yeah,
document.
well, I have the summary anyway,
The summary,
so
right?
right. So I could just create a Google Doc that we could both work off of and
Okay, that
just
sounds
start
good.
adding to it.
That would be awesome.
All right.
Jeez.
Google
And,
Doc.
and you're going to use Bobby's summary, not mine, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll start with Bobby's. So I mean,
Yeah.
Bobby's worked off of yours to begin with
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, but they're both on the drive. Maybe I should just remove mine.
Well, but then the other thing we don't have it, so is the spreadsheet updated or whatever, what
Yeah,
happens?
yeah, it's updated.
So we can see the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, so I think we've got that. Lisa, are you able to join now, or are you okay?
Are you gonna make
All right,
Yep, we just had a little bit of a banking issue, but it's all cleared up.
okay. Just a little
I'll
bit,
have it. Just to let my Melissa. I'll have it.
okay. So I think you're on now. Is it, is there a document you want to share, or what are we gonna do with?
So I included the budget projections again for what we went over for the last board meeting. Again, this is at a very high level. I am drilling down to be able to have next week and even for the board meeting next week and also for the finance committee the week after. The devil is in the details and being able to drill down, trying to get to that 2.75% year over year increase that we've now, the board compromised on. So again, this is at a high level. I'm drilling down into these categories. And again, this was a first pass. This is just line item by line item, the different categories, and you'll see where it rolls up. The debt service might be changing slightly. It might have to go up slightly, but I'm still working on that number. But to be able to achieve this, this was a 3% increase. But we voted on a year over year 2.75% increase. So we are looking at a $2,179,125 reduction with a 2.75 year over year increase. So that's what I'm, is somebody sharing a screen?
I am sharing a screen. Do you want me to stop and you'll share yours? Because that might be easier, then you can get to
Okay,
where.
yeah, because that's the, I'll share mine. That is the, capital budget.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I wonder if we went to, oh, okay.
Yep. So the new number where we need to, I just didn't get a chance to fill this in. So the new number where we need to be is, right here, 49,209,127, which would be our operating budget, which would be a 2.75% increase year over year.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is just, let me just format this. Oops.
Oop.
Yep. So this is, I'm working to be able to achieve this. The biggest category right now I'm working in is salary and benefits.
Right.
And, you know, there's, you know, we don't have, we did go out to bid last week on transportation. We're not getting those bids back in until December 13th.
Okay.
Until these numbers start rolling in, I can then solidify these numbers. But you know, that's a large number for our transportation and not knowing that where that's going to fall. So what I'm really focusing on, there's not, a lot below the line that we could be cutting, knowing that our human resources is our largest expense of 71%. Where that's going to fall, that's what I'm trying to focus on is cutting as much as we can below the line and also being cognizant of not cutting where we're going to be operating possibly in a deficit. The district has never operated in a deficit. So I want to make sure that we don't go down that path. It's, you know, that's the fine line. So I actually have been over the last several weeks is really going line by line, looking at the history of expenses versus budgeting, and to see where I can reduce any type of contingencies or actual budget if we've under budgeted in certain areas, and trying to limit the impact on FTEs. Steve,
So
any
that
questions?
I think Mike was saying that you were kind of scrubbing the budget. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're going through each item and trying to see where there's room. I see Steve has his hand up before. I think one of the questions that I had was the what this might represent in terms of FTEs, and maybe that it's too soon. Steve, do you want to say something?
Yeah, first of all, I recommend looking at this sheet on the drive where you can see it better. But I wanted to ask Lisa, I mean, I know this is a high level spreadsheet. Kind of the last column where you propose target percent changes, I mean, some categories, there are big swings from what was projected change in column G to your proposed change in column K. And I mean, there's a big swing in dues and others, but I think you said at the last board meeting, you got a better rate than expected, or for some, what's the acronym, TAN or something? Maybe that's not in that category, but for example, in line 23, proposed change was almost 5%, but you're proposing now a 12% cut. And uh, I'm not questioning these figures. I'm just wondering how you're able to come up with them.
Well, and this is what I'm working on, is trying to work below the line with all the administrators to see where we could be cutting line by line by line. So if, again, if, you know, column E through G is if we assumed the assumptions, because there are increases in services, you know, plowing went up, maintenance, all of that went up. So what we're trying to do is looking at different things. You know, we've cut back on current projects. And, that could be where we budgeted last year 79,000 in current projects. We're budgeting very basic, only have to projects for our maintenance reserve, for our general fund. So that's the $79,000 we're looking at reducing significantly.
Which row is that?
That's line 25.
Okay, got it.
So that's what I've been really spending my time on with Ray and with our administrators to see what we can cut back. And that's my target, to be able to get to and cut $118,000 out of this this line item, the purchase
Yeah.
property. So looking at changing some providers, we recently changed to Myers for our trash and recycling, and looking at our plowing contracts and seeing where we can cut back. So my target is cutting the 118 down to 118,667. If I can't achieve that by Monday, then we're looking at, obviously above the line or more FTEs.
Okay.
Does the same logic apply to supplies on line 50?
It applies across the board. These are my target numbers. And if I can't achieve that, then it adds up to more FTE cuts.
Okay.
All right, so the understanding is you work below the line as much as possible.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do, to minimize the FTEs, but knowing 71% of our operating budget is humans,
Yeah,
human resources.
yeah, thank you.
Then just to add to that, Steve, and those are great questions. If we then end up with the FTEs might determine, as we cut positions, where we might have to look at class sizes or changes. Is that a correct assumption? That
Yes,
could influence, okay. But we'd
looking
have,
at class sizes and how we can reconfigure class sizes, it's we're looking at that.
right. And I know you said it's challenging because in a lot of some of the elementary schools, you don't have a class per grade. You may have combined classes, and so it gets difficult to do without actually, I mean, it also calls into question the consolidation question. If you were bringing schools together, but we don't yet have that information, that might have an effect on it. But for this year, it could be challenging, or in the next few years, in the short term.
Absolutely. And looking at our projected enrollments, for instance, how will it work out? Are we, I just had a conversation with Facetin today. Are we within the grades that we currently have and the teachers that we currently have in each, for each grade? Are we exceeding, a certain number based on the projected enrollments for next year? And again, we don't know final enrollments, but we have a good idea. So trying to look at that, review the number of enrollments and how the grade configurations could work out. That's all comes into play.
And can I ask one more question? And again, these are friendly questions. Like, how do you decide in these below the line categories, the percent of cut or the dollar figure of cut that you aim for?
I was looking in terms of the budget history and where we can cut back and where we've over budgeted for our contingencies, because we always build in some contingencies. Like, for instance, we don't know oil prices or propane prices. So we build in contingency costs in there, and looking at the history of expenses versus budget, where we can actually reduce that contingency to be able to have achieved such a number. So it's really looking line by line item. And I've actually looked over, I've gone back now 4 years and looking at expenses line by line at each school, because this rolls up to a district level, but at each school and where we could cut back.
And as you said, it's a bit of a gamble. You definitely don't want to end up in a deficit situation by cutting too much.
Correct.
Yeah.
if you remember my first year starting here, propane utility costs were very high. Oil and propane. And these last 2 years they've dropped. I don't know where it's going to be next year. So, you know, it's something to consider. Do we drop that? So these are the things that I'm looking at.
Mm, mm.
Thank you.
And I think what you did say, and what Steve was referring to, was there is some additional revenue, the block grant coming into the state for the is higher than what you anticipated, and some other, you know, that's for special ed, right? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that, but you have to, it's offset by increases in other areas. So it may help, but you know, we do have increases and not all and not all in the revenue side.
If you go to the second tab, I'm showing this, but if you're in the document itself, you go to the second tab, that's my revenue projection for next year.
Okay.
You'll see our block our block census grant went up by $296,000, which is great.
Yeah.
Because it did not go up that much. In fact, it dropped from fiscal year 24 to 25. It dropped.
Yeah.
And we benefited from the increase in projected for fiscal year 26.
Yeah.
So our block grant is for special ed expenses. Our special ed expenses, if you include salary and benefits, exceed $11 million. And we get from our block grant is $4 million.
Okay.
And that next line, line 21, that's what's projected to come back for that extraordinary reimbursement, that 95%. So
Right.
once you reach a threshold for a special ed student that's over for fiscal year 26, it's projected at 67,638. Once you reach that threshold, then you get reimbursed. Now, keep in mind, that's a plan based on the service plan that is put in place now for next year. And we never know until like the fourth quarter when somebody exceeds that
Yeah.
extraordinary cost of 67,638, because we don't get the billing, you know, until that third or fourth quarter when we start to see if that person exceeds that. Even though we have a plan, we have to wait for those invoices to come in from all those vendors.
And so what you're saying, I mean, in the best case scenario, we're looking at having 5,700,000 coming, you know, in revenue, but we're still looking at an increase beyond that of over $2 million for expense.
Yes, our
Yeah.
special ed expenses did increase over $2 million.
So we got to find that $2 million somewhere while we're doing all of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, are
Yeah. Cindy.
One of the things that over the past 2 years that we had talked about doing was, I have laryngitis, so I'm trying
Yeah.
to.
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
We had talked about bringing on our own behavior interventionists and stuff for special ed, and being able to reduce some of the expenses that we had of going with Green Mountain Mental Health and, you know, the different mental health agencies. Are we seeing any of that yet? Are we switching the way we're funding our special, you know, our interventionists in mental health?
So we have, one of the ideas was having a psychologist come on board. We have that posted, but we've unfortunately had no luck in filling that position. You know, if we fill that position, that would reduce our expenses. We have had a switch where, because of Green Mountain or Washington County hasn't been able to fill BIs, what we had to do is we've had to hire IAs, but it was a reduction on then the outside vendor cost. So that was just a net switch. But we've had no luck in filling those positions, you know, the psychologist position.
Okay. Well, I mean, in the absence of, is there other, anything else we need to ask Lisa at this point? Anybody have any thoughts? And,
Okay,
um,
I
yeah.
have one more question. You've probably answered this and I just don't remember it. Did the RFPs go out for transportation to the bus companies around? How many went out? Have we gotten anything? When is our deadline for getting stuff back on that?
So the RFPs went out last Wednesday, and we put it in the paper prior to last Wednesday to let them know it would be going out last Wednesday. It went out to 12 or 13 providers. And we've actually had a lot of questions, which is very good. And the RFP, the proposals are due back on December 13th. Once we get those bids back, I'll open them up after 2 o'clock on December 13th, and then make recommendations for the board meeting on December 18th. So the bids are due back on December 13th. We'll compile them after 2 o'clock on Friday, December 13th, and we'll make recommendations to the board at the board meeting.
Okay, great, thanks. So we don't want to, it's 5:05 and on a rainy night. I wonder, if we've concluded at least this portion of the meeting and want to move on to, I'm looking at the agenda on a different document so that I can see it. So the next item that we had was any reports from subcommittee works on the assignment of short-term tasks. Any,
Bobby?
yes,
Um,
Lisa, sorry.
There's a couple of other line items I just wanted to share. So I wanted to go over special funds. This is something I've normally always reported at the board, but I thought I could start reporting that at the finance committee now. And,
Yeah.
if you guys have any questions, I'll open that up and share that with you.
I guess that was the document I opened by mistake.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let me share this with you.
Okay.
So the special funds is everything other than the general fund. And the general fund, when I speak of the general fund, it's basically the tax dollars that we get back to the school to fund the school system, and the reimbursements from AOE for categoric aid, the census block grant. All of that goes into our general fund. All these other special funds are non-general funds. So there's grants that we get in. There's Title IV, BEST grant, tobacco grant. There's MAC funding grant. So this is all other types of funding that we need to manage, and to be able to report back to you guys to be able to see how we're doing with these other special funds. What's not included in here, and you'll see lower down, is because we're still finalizing and reconciling the capital maintenance reserve account. But this is a special a report on all of our different special funds. Anywhere you see a negative and it says reimbursed by the state of Vermont, SOV is state of Vermont in the grants management system, that means as I'm waiting for a reimbursement, I've submitted for a reimbursement, I may show a negative, but those checks don't go out until December 10th. So I'll be reimbursed for the first quarter by December 10th, after December 10th. So for instance, IDEAB, which is part of special ed funding for a grant, I'm waiting for a reimbursement. That's why you're showing a negative. That's why you're seeing a negative. Unfortunately, there are some residual negatives that I need to clean up that have been carried over from years to years to years. And I'll need to go in and be able to clean that up and using our general fund and just clean up these negatives. Some of them as small as $13 that, as an example, the local standards board grant is something that we get in from the state to cover licensing, their stipends, and sometimes if the health benefits or the visitors isn't budgeted just correctly, that there is an overage. And in this instance, there's a slight overage. We'll need to clean that up this year in terms of cleaning out for our, clean it up out of our general fund.
Mm.
One number you'll see that's a very large number that I want to explain is the HRA. The HRA is a reserve account that we keep as a liability. So this happens to be with health insurance. About 92% of our staff are on HRAs. So when they have a claim for the HRA, we budget X amount of dollars. We don't budget for the full amount. And so just in case we have to go over that, we actually book a liability. So we do have about $648,000 just in case we were ever to exceed that amount in 1 year. So each year we book a liability. This is something that we're going to be looking at possibly reducing our liability and moving money back into the general fund. But in case in 1 year that we exceed that number, we have this as a backup to be able to pay those medical bills.
I just have a question. Has that happened yet? Like, have we had a year where somebody's expenses exceed, the HRA?
Yes.
We've already had that. And I bet, was it close to that figure, 600,000 or?
No, it was much lower than that, but Michelle, in the last 3 years, we have not had to tap into that, but Michelle has told me that they've had to, because we only budget, if I were to budget the full HRA that goes out to everyone, it would be very costly. So we keep a kitty in case, so that we only budget about 70%. And then we put the rest into this kitty in case we do exceed it. And Michelle had shared with me that she has had to go into and touch this.
Yeah. Okay.
Many of these that we're waiting on transfers back. This large number down here is ESSER. I'm waiting to be reimbursed from the grant system for the ESSER. That's why you're seeing a negative $502,000. The state will be reimbursing me for all those expenses. So what happens is we have to front these expenses and then we get reimbursed from the state. So it's not a drawdown. We have some enterprise funds. There's small kitty of funds for professional development. Facein and Harwood have some enterprise funds, and then we have activity accounts. The agency funds are basically all the student activity accounts or the scholarship accounts that we keep. And then I do a reporting on this quarterly. I was doing it to the full board last year, but I could be doing this also to the finance committee so you can see where these funds are from quarter to quarter.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Now, what's not included in this, we're still reconciling the the maintenance reserve account. So I will add that in here next time. What I'm trying to settle also is the insurance claim for the flooding over the summer for Crossett Brook and for Moortown. We hope to be settled shortly, but I'm still working with Visbit as our secondary insurance for Moortown. So what was not covered by national flood insurance will be picked up by Visbit, besides a few things, but pretty much will be covered for Moortown. And that flood is exceeding $1.4 million so far, the recovery effort for Moortown alone.
Is that for the 2 flooding incidents or just the one?
That's just Moortown, $1.4 million.
No, but I mean, Moortown flooded twice, I know.
Oh, no, that's just this July's.
Yeah, yeah.
Prior to that, it was over 800,000 in last December.
Yep.
And that's why we ended up moving to National Flood Insurance, because it was the second claim less than a year. And that's why Visbit, we were then moved to National Flood Insurance for the claim for Moortown. Crossett Brook was still covered under Visbit, but in Moortown's instance, they now Visbit becomes a secondary, and National Flood Insurance becomes the first primary. And they covered up to $500,000 for property. Under their claim, they had a category A and a category B. So we got to claim up to 500,000 for property and 384 for supplies and certain things that fell under that. So we reached the 500,000 for National Flood Insurance, and beyond that now is secondary that will be reimbursed from Visbit. And once the dust settles on that, I'll be able to report on that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Lisa? I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
The only other thing is I have the projected numbers for the capital, preliminary numbers for the capital budget. It's a little further down on the agenda, but I'm happy to, do you want me to move there?
Yeah, I think, why don't
Sure,
we?
sure.
I'll share my screen. So what we're looking at is we had projected, remember if last year we projected fiscal year 24, 25, 26 and beyond. For 26 original projected budget, that for maintenance, we would be looking at $4.7 million in deferred maintenance.
Lisa, we're not seeing anything.
Not seeing this. And what we're seeing, it says rejoin. Meetings are just one tool in our belt.
Oh, hold on. Wrong screen. Thank you. Didn't realize that.
It's all these different screens.
I know I have a lot of screens open. My
Right,
apologies.
and also, once again, my agenda that I'm working off of was put out like a week or two ago, and I think there've been changes. It's not this, I'm not showing this capital budget on this one, so I may have downloaded the wrong one. Or,
Yeah, I'm seeing it on my agenda, but can't view it. It hasn't been shared with us.
It hasn't been? Oh,
No.
that's my bad. Hold on.
Okay,
That's my problem. My apologies. Done. Shared.
thank you.
Okay,
Well,
great.
apparently I looked at an older agenda, and that's what I pulled up.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, Bonnie, I mean, Bobby, I
this-
see you in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I know, I'm probably in there, but I probably opened the wrong, this was an agenda from you and not from Meg, right?
Yeah, so you always have to open the one from Meg because that's the one we warn.
Okay, well, that's the one I
I
opened.
send her the agenda and then she warns it. So then we have to use that one.
Okay, yeah,
Bobby, I'm going to forward you Meg's agenda right now.
well, I was using Meg's agenda, I thought. Okay,
Okay,
I do, yeah.
I have an agenda, it's attaches the agenda for the next board meeting. And when I look at that, it has, oh, preliminary, there it is. There was no space between it. After term tasks and then preliminary view of capital maintenance. I apologize. I didn't see.
Yep, because I see you in here.
Right.
So bare minimum, because, you know, I'm only projecting a transfer into the capital maintenance of $500,000.
Yeah,
I'm looking at only budgeting and moving forward with $506,000. We're still looking at what has to get done, what needs to be done. And this is early on because, you know, we're still working with Truex Collins and to be able to figure out for future, what do we need to do in each building if anything were to change in the future? So we're looking at, Ray has put together what really needs to be done versus, you know, he prioritizes what really needs to be done. A lot of this for flooring is safety issues. This is the stormwater project that we actually are getting 90% funded by the state. So, you know, it makes sense moving forward with this if we're only matching 10%. Parking lot issues at Crosset Brook, we have to do that. Again, parking lot repairs at Harwood, things that we need to be addressed. Harwood's fire panel needs
Yeah.
to be addressed. So this is bare minimum what we're recommending to move forward with for fiscal year 26 for the summer of 25.
Mm.
This is a very depressing spreadsheet.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Well, no, I mean, when you look at what ought to be done, it's really shocking.
Well, the biggest cost in most of our buildings is HVAC and roofing.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at Brookside, we're looking at $900,000 for the HVAC. And we need to be upgrading high schools, which is 1.6 million.
Yeah.
Now, as this stuff gets factored into the discussions with Truex Collins for the feasibility study, is that correct? So
Yes.
that's, yeah.
So
But-
this is early on. Normally you guys don't vote on this until, you know, January, February, but I just wanted to give you a heads up where we're at. And then that also is in line with the discussions and with the new feasibility facility committee that the
Yeah.
board has put together. You know, I wanted to have this out there. So in discussions with the facility committee and Truex Collins, you know, this could change depending on what data we get from the Truex Collins review.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions.
Okay, and then with discussions about funding coming from the state, that could make a difference too if they come up with another plan, but I don't see how likely that is, but anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Lisa, with some of the efficiency upgrades, like replacing the fluorescent lights with LEDs, do you have a sense of whether that would create a significant savings in energy costs?
Yes, I'm hoping it will. So we are projecting, I am reducing some of our electric, you know, contingencies. And, you know, we're still, if you remember, that was a $250,000 project. We got about half of it done in the current year, and we're still, the other half, we're looking at to finalize that so we can achieve some savings for that, removing all that old lighting.
Hmm. Okay.
One of the things that we are finding though is the lights are extremely bright. And so we're going to have to, part of this 100,000 is also to be able to have put some dimmer switches in some of the classrooms because the LED lighting is bright.
Well, that could be more of a savings, I guess. I don't know.
I'm sure it's been covered already, but did we get grants for that, or did we look for grants for things like lighting?
Yes, we've received all the grant and that's what we ended up buying, a lot of the fixtures, and we're just paying for the installation.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. Well, where do should we move on? This is, once again, Lisa, I mean, the different funds and the different explanations are staggering. And you do a great job of getting it across. So, that being said, are we ready to move on to the next item, which is the the short-term tasks? I don't know if anybody's had a chance to review this. I know what I had signed up for, and is there anything, and Dan, was it Dan or Corey, I guess, contacted the boosters?
It wasn't me.
Yeah.
So.
Corey.
Corey, yeah. So, and they're definitely interested in working with us and doing what we can. I had an item about early childhood education. I don't know if anybody, if there's other items that we want to talk about. We could open the short-term tasks and
I could pop it up on and share if you want.
good, that might be good. Yeah.
So I'm going to report I've not done anything on the marketing I volunteered for, but my excuse is getting this ed panel going. So
Yeah.
that's in the past now, so I can get going on this.
Okay, marketing, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started to look into childhood funding, and they're really, I guess my question, which I got as far as the tax department, and then they wanted me to contact another number. I think it really just has to do with the taxation. We offer free early education at the preschool level. And yet we have some parents who are choosing to privately go to private early childhood. So, and we're paying that bill. Am I correct, Lisa?
Yes.
Yep. So one thought I had was, I mean, and I know part of the reason that was because there were private childcare facilities that would be extremely hurt by our offering the same thing in the public schools. And I think that's how that sort of came about. But it is an expense for us. And then with the universal childcare, we are also now mandated to pay an employment tax, so that because and I'm not sure how that's calculated, but it occurred to me that since we already offer free childcare, that in a sense, it seems to me we're getting taxed twice, because we're paying the universal child care tax, but we're not getting any credit for what we offer, which could be it could be free to our employees. And that was kind of where I was going with that, and whether that became an additional expense for us, that that we're covering twice. Does that make any sense? What I'm saying, and it's not a popular view. I mean, we're trying to make early childhood, education available to everyone, including our employees. So that's kind of my question. And if it's not something worth pursuing, it might be worth dropping. I don't know.
So this is the first I've heard about it. So the district pays for some of its employees' childcare in either by giving them slots in the school or paying for private childcare.
No.
Is that right or no?
No,
Yes.
no. Well, yes, we also pay for we pay for the private child care that's for anyone, right? Any parent?
For any parent, yes, not just employees, for any parent that chooses
It's
pre-K 3 or pre-K 4, it's choice. So they tell us where they want to send their kids, and then we have to cover that expense.
Yeah.
Is that mandated by the state?
Mhm.
And then this new universal tax came in, which is also mandated by the state, and that's to pay a portion of our salaries would go in for, it's only, how does that work? I mean, is it based on the number of employees you have
Yes,
that require child, so we're paying, we're being taxed on the basis of the number of employees we have that need early childhood care.
but that's a tax across for everybody. That's a tax. It's 0.44% for all employees, and the employer is responsible for 2/3 of it. And the employer can charge up to 1/3 to the employees. What we've done this year is the district covered it. The $20,000 that the employee would cover, because of the situation with e-finance, and we couldn't code it early on. Many districts decided just to cover that expense. It's a total tax for us is about 120,000. I believe this year. So, a quarter of that would be paid by employees. That's something we'll need to determine if we want to roll that out for the employees to pay their 1/3. In talking with a lot of other districts, I haven't polled everybody, but many districts are just absorbing that.
Yeah. I wonder how much it would add to our budget. I mean, if we just, and I don't think we can do this because it's a tax that we're, yeah, I don't know.
It is a tax.
Yeah,
Lisa, I wasn't clear. Is it 1/3 of the 120K total? Or is it 1/3
Yes.
of it's the 120? Okay.
well, 1/3. I thought it was a quarter was paid by the employee. It's 1/3.
2/3 are paid by the state, by us, and 1/3 is paid by the employee.
Yeah, okay, 1/3
So,
employee.
so we're looking at a unpopular potential way to save 40,000.
Yeah, so it doesn't really amount to very much, does it?
Yeah, this year would be, about 40,000.
Yeah.
39.6.
Yeah, it was just something that, it was that and the universal school lunch. I looked at it and I thought, well, these are, because it all shows up in that education fund, is that right? Yeah, so it's just other expenses we have to meet. And
So just to share the number to outside pre-K providers, last year we spent over $254,000 to outside pre-K providers. So I have to pay for providers outside of the school district, even though we provide PK in most of our schools.
so that's 260,000.
254 last year I paid.
Okay.
Is that
That's a lot.
significantly more expensive than it would cost us to do it?
Yeah, that's a question.
What last year's amount was 388. What was last year's rate? Let me just double check. Fiscal year 24 was for one full student would be 3,674, and this year to an outside provider, I believe it was $3,888
Per student.
per student.
Are we talking about the mandatory preschool? Grades 3 and 4. It's mandatory. I'm not sure when we're talking about childcare versus preschool. But we didn't have the capacity to provide preschool. So we got into this deal where there was a lottery for kids being able to come to Washington West come to Thatcher at the time for preschool. And then kids who couldn't get into that because it was state mandated, we had to pay for them to get their preschool. If there was a preschool program like at Hunger Mountain Child Care or one of those, we paid for that preschool as if they were coming to our school. When I was back involved with it and the law first came in about mandatory preschool, that's what we did. Is that what are we talking about, mandatory preschool here?
This is pre-K 3 and 4, yes.
Yeah, so I guess that's what it is. So do we have the capacity? I
we
guess
always
that's the
thought-
other question.
we always-
Do we have the capacity to handle all of?
We didn't use
Yeah, okay.
we didn't used to have that capacity. We had a teacher for preschool and she could have, I don't know, 12 students or 20 students or whatever it was. And then as I said, and that was decided on by lottery. Is that still the case? Do kids still get chosen for the program at the school by lottery? And then if they couldn't get in on the lottery, then we had to support them at a sanctioned preschool.
It's not
That's
supported by lottery any longer. It's, you know, if they sign up for Waitsfield or Facein, to the outside, preschools, there's about 66 kids, this year that go to outside preschools. Now, could we take on 66 kids?
That's the question.
In,
They count.
not all at
student
once, no.
counts?
Without a significant, addition to FTEs.
Do they count in our student counts?
Yes,
The ones going to private schools?
yes.
Okay.
But presumably it's not a question of expansion. I would guess the parents who are sending kids outside the system are doing it because of convenience, things like that.
Well, we don't know that.
We don't know.
That's what, I mean, so hearing Cindy, that was interesting hearing what Cindy said. So the reason, I just assumed it was like a do not compete kind of clause or something. But I think it really that makes sense. If we don't have the capacity, and to Dan's question, and then we have to hire another full-time equivalent, it's a wash. It's not, it is not gonna, it'd be
Part of
interesting
the
to
problem,
figure stands for, but.
hey guys, part of the problem for parents in making that choice is that it's only just a couple of hours a day at most. And so the preschools that a lot of these kids go to then provide childcare for the rest of the day, which parents pay for. My grandchild goes to Hunger Mountain, and when he's 3, he'll go into their preschool program for 3 days, 3 mornings a week or something. But he goes to Hunger Mountain 5 days a week full time. So the preschool portion of it that's required by law, the state will pay for. It counts in our preschool thing. But those parents, it's not necessarily convenient. Sometimes it's just that they're required to provide this care for their kids, and then they can't because of the lack of additional childcare, which we're not in a position to provide.
So I think that's a change. And at one point, Warren used to provide pre-K after school, but I don't think all schools do that. And that's only, that would only be for school age kids. It would obviously not, that's the 3 and 4 year olds, the pre-K 3 and 4. So at Brookside, for instance, they don't provide pre-K after school.
And not that I'm aware of.
No.
Okay.
We only did the pre-K at Warren, the pre-K after school at Warren very briefly. It was, the ratios made that incredibly difficult. And we ended up having to, that's when sort of K-Pass ended up kindergarten, preschool, after school would keep all the littles later, and we separated them from the after school program. They have it. I'm not sure if they're doing it now, but
they have the K-Pass, but not pre-K. Or I think it's a moot point. I think I can eliminate that item from is my take on it. I just, if it was seeming like something that would be an extreme burden, or that a big cost savings for us, that's what I was thinking of when I said that, but.
I
was interested to hear that, Bobby.
Yeah, okay. Well, so I've done my job and I'm discharged from that.
I'm
Good
on the
job,
list
Bobby.
for extracurricular, and I am working with Ian to be able to, scrub the extracurricular and the activity, the athletic budget.
Yeah.
To be able to come up with some options for the finance committee to review and then the board to decide on. We're trying to narrow that down to see if we can come up with some significant savings that we're going to be recommending to the finance committee and the board.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
thank you. So are there any other short-term tasks that we need to report on? Let's see, longer term, we had short term.
So there were a couple of short-term tasks that we didn't assign to anybody. Are any of those ones that we want to pursue at this time? Or are we just letting those ones sit for now? I'm trying to find my list here.
Well, they were, yeah, so it looks like in the longer, I don't know, there's a thing that said longer term. So consolidation reconfiguration, we definitely are pursuing that. I mean, that's, and then number of principals, I think that was PALS.
Yeah, really.
So administration, so this actually, it talks about the things, pay to play sliding scale payment for extracurriculars, and we're gonna call that co-curriculars, right? Not extra, I mean, so that people
And
see,
can we, I'm going to change pay to play to
yeah,
needs-based.
needs-based sliding scale payment for co-curriculars.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
changing that.
okay. And virtual learning initiative, boy, these are all the things that came up at the panel discussion too.
Well, so the virtual learning initiative, I had a very brief discussion a few months back with Shannon about, and I'd be curious in following up on that. I don't know if it's something to address at this point or for later, but
Hmm. But these are some things that could be addressed in the frequently asked questions, you know, because
Right.
those were things that came up at the panel discussion. I didn't take notes really at the panel, but that's what I remember people, you know, the one gentleman from Warren, Michael Sharkey, and talking about, you know, taking online classes virtually and, you know, different, we have that in some areas, but he's talking about whole classrooms being instructed by an instructor who spends a percentage of the year in the classroom with the group, but rotates around.
right.
Okay.
And my take on that piece was that we have opportunities that are paid by the state through the education fund that wouldn't hit our budget, that could create additional opportunities for students like VTVLC, dual enrollment, early college. Those are all paid for by the state, not by the district. So the more that our students can take advantage of it, it gives them more opportunities without cost to us.
Mhm.
I mean,
But I think
if you want to keep looking into that, that would
one
be great.
One thing we used to do, because when I was a school counselor in Rochester, we had like a handful of kids that wanted AP classes, and we were able to do it through a satellite television kind of thing. And now I'm sure there's other ways of doing it as a way of offering AP classes. I don't know what AP classes we have now at the high school, or how much demand there is for it, or whether that, you know, what kinds of efforts are being made with that. It was a great program. I mean, we had, you know, literally two kids took some of the classes, but you still had to make a classroom available, and there had to be adult supervision, and it didn't have to be you know, so I don't know what the legalities of all of that were. I can't remember, but they abandoned it after a few years.
Yeah, and so some of those same classes are available now through other means, like VTVLC, I think, has a few AP, and of course, all the college classes through like early college and dual enrollment are at that same level where students can get college credit for it.
Yeah.
So I was calling into the question, I guess, that I have is, does it make sense for our district to be paying for as many in-house AP classes as we do when there are similar, if not identical, programs available for free that we could work into our system and develop those programs through state paid avenues?
Yeah.
So for example, what if we had a student lounge for online learning with an adult present that is kind of like a assistant tutor type person that could help for students that want to take these online classes but want to do it in the physical community of the school versus being at home.
Hmm.
It might be ways to get more students involved in college level learning, but still within the hardwood system.
Well, sounds like worth following up a little bit more.
That is interesting, Dan.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
does that. I mean, in these lean times, that doesn't sound beyond the pale. How many do we still offer 12 AP classes? Lisa, do you know that answer? I don't want you to go digging forever.
That sounds right.
I think it is 12. Interesting.
Did we lose Lisa?
No, she's there.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. She's sharing. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I'm not sure, but I think that does sound right.
Yeah, I think it's 12 right now.
And how many, and again, how does that translate into full-time equivalent teachers? And what the other options might be. Yeah, I don't know.
Is there a way to figure out how much our AP program costs us roughly? I mean, I know we don't have teachers that are dedicated only to AP, so it's a little bit hard to probably sparse that out, but for ballpark estimates?
let me see what I can do. Yes, I can be able to look at, their proportional share of that that teaching, that instructional unit and the value of that.
That's interesting to consider, as other ways to, if we can get some classes for free. But as I contemplated that and was thinking about my Rochester experience, I realized we still had to pay a teacher to be there, and it worked. I don't remember what we did exactly, but and I didn't know the money end of it. I just we were just excited to have that was pre-computers, really early computers.
And I mean, I do want to keep in mind that, virtual courses are that you lose something from having a teacher in front of you as somebody who
That
taught
is
for a
true.
year virtually.
Yeah, yeah.
That's totally
I mean,
true. Maybe,
if-
it's,
If it's an AP course that the school doesn't offer, that's one thing.
yep, that's true too. Broad and without spending.
Yeah.
Well, there's an upshot.
Okay. Well, so Dan, it sounds like you're going to continue to poke around in that area.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing that. So anything else we have to, let's see, there were the other larger class sizes, possible other staff reductions, reduce non-required classes, and set assets to fund construction. I mean, is that kind of being handled? That other one would be sell assets to fund construction. I mean, that's all kind of related to that feasibility study, isn't it? And maybe the facilities committee.
Yeah.
What assets?
Well, land, or, if we decide, if there was some discussion at some point, some time ago, selling HCLC, that building, but that's being used as HCLC now.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea. That building is a great asset for one
Well,
purpose or another.
Right, and that's one of the things that Ray and I will be looking at in January is to develop a plan, because Mad River lease ends in fiscal year 26. So we need to be out of Mad River Park for the central office on June 30th, 2020.
I think we should convert the gym.
2026.
I think the gym with all the gym equipment in the south end ground floor of the Harwood building we have to look at that really seriously, because HCLC might be really unhappy to be made to move, and it might not be good for students over there. And that separation is part of what works for them, is that it's quiet over there. And the building space that I'm talking about, what's in there is workout equipment that is really underutilized. I mean, like monumentally sitting there for them, unless it's bad weather, unless, and all those things could be moved to that up on the top floor where the art department is, into that huge gym, could be multi-use and open up that office space down there. I mean, I think that is, I mean, we own that building, that saves the money. I think we should really, I mean, I don't know, does Ray have it as like, does he think the HCLC building is a better option, Lisa?
It's something we're not sold on, us moving in. It's wherever we decide to move, either keep HCLC where they are and we move the central office into, the high school and possibly other locations, meaning where is it best to have the IT group or
Sure.
who also could work from home. So we're going to start really working on that for fiscal year after January and start solidifying a plan, because if anything needs to happen to accommodate any of the moves, that needs to happen next year, because we need to be out
Right.
by June.
And isn't the rough estimate for moving admin into HCLC like 350 grand to convert that or upgrade and add what you need for IT and stuff? I just think it's, I having had a child go through HCLC and be so successful, I know that part of his success was that it wasn't on campus and that there wasn't all those distractions. And I know when I talked to Meg McDonough not too long ago, she at graduation, actually, she told me that when they talked to the HCLC current students, they really they weren't loving that idea. And obviously there's a lot to consider, but more than money, that program has been really good for a lot of kids. And it would be a shame to dismantle something so effective in the name of office space. I have a problem with that. I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
Okay. Yeah, well, so this is where we get into, but and then again, this whole feasibility study and looking at the buildings. Lisa, are there other buildings that my understanding, I mean, if we don't own Brookside, for instance, you can't, I mean, I think at one point there was a discussion that, well, maybe you could sell off some buildings and build affordable housing or do something like that, but are there
Can't
any?
do that.
You can't do that, so.
To sell the building back to the town for the dollar that we paid for it first.
Yeah, we
That's the
couldn't
first
sell the
option.
buildings. There is land, but we couldn't sell the buildings.
Okay, we do have land, but where is this land? I mean, you mean the land under the buildings? No.
No, behind the high school, there's land available.
Okay. Okay, just a little, and it's mostly far.
It's something that it's been discussed in the past.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it the
So,
land
there a
with
lot of
all the
land
cross-country
behind
trails on it?
Part of it.
yeah.
Ugh, I hate that idea.
Okay, anyway, we don't, so it
Is
sounds like
there
we don't
land
have a lot of
behind?
assets. I mean, it would be something to look into if does it have a value beyond what it's being used for, but it sounds, I mean, then you have to talk about bringing in engineers and what can you do with it, and half of it is wooded, I don't know. It sounds like that's, because that issue came up in the survey. People saying, to sell buildings and.
Doesn't work like that. The articles of agreement have plenty of things in place to make that not a turnaround for us.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay,
All right,
so
it's getting on 1:10. It's late.
Yeah,
Time's it? Yeah.
late for
winding.
you, Ashley. What time is it there? Like midnight, quarter to?
No, it's 11.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, 5
Oh.
hours. So, I don't know where else what else we want to do tonight. I guess, set the next meeting date will be, so it will be not the Wednesday we get back, but the Wednesday after, right? So we're every other, I can't, when's our next board meeting? Is next Wednesday, is that right?
Yeah, the 4th.
December, right? We're already there.
Right. So our next finance committee meeting would be on December
Yeah.
11th.
Yep.
11th,
Yep.
right, 7 days, okay. And 4:30 to 6, the same as this. And I thank everyone who was here and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I don't know what you're gonna be doing, Ashley, if you'll have turkey.
Eating Chinese with Poppy.
Eating Chinese food. Okay, that sounds good. And so everyone, and Cindy, get well, and
Yeah,
Thanks for running this meeting, Bobby. Nice job.
yeah,
okay,
thank
all
you.
right, thank you. And so we need a motion to adjourn and a second. So I can't move, but
I'll
Motion
move
to adjourn.
okay,
Yep.
motion to
Dan
adjourn and
seconds.
second. Okay,
All right.
right. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanks. Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving,
holidays,
everyone.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.